At our 15th anniversary dinner, surrounded by our closest friends and family, my husband stood up with his wine glass and said something that made everyone laugh. He said, "I'll give her one more year, then I'm divorcing her." The room erupted in uncomfortable laughter. People thought it was a joke. A dark joke, sure, but a joke nonetheless. My mother's face went pale. My best friend Sarah's eyes went wide. But everyone laughed, because that's what you do when someone makes an awkward comment at a dinner party, right? But I didn't laugh. I just sat there, perfectly still, with a slight smile on my face. Because what I knew, what he didn't know I knew, would turn that laughter into absolute silence within the next 60 seconds. This is my story, and I need to warn you right now. This gets dark. This gets messy. This gets calculated. Because for 6 months before that dinner party, I had been living a double life. While my husband thought he was playing chess, moving pieces around the board in secret, preparing for his big move, I had already won the game. My name is Catherine. I'm 49 years old now, and this is the story of how 1 year became a countdown, how a marriage became a war, and how the woman everyone underestimated became the one who held all the cards.
If you're listening right now, help me prove something wrong. My mother said I wouldn't even reach 10,000 subscribers, but I believe stories like this deserve to be heard. Help me show her that these tales matter. Please subscribe to DR Avenge Stories, and let's keep breathing life into stories that were never meant to stay silent. Before I tell you what I said at that dinner table, before I reveal how I responded to my husband's cruel joke, I need you to understand 3 things. 3 secrets that were sitting at that table with us, invisible to everyone except me. Secret number 1, I knew exactly why he said 1 more year, and it had nothing to do with giving our marriage another chance. Secret number 2, I knew who he'd been with, where they'd been, how long it had been going on, down to the date, the time, and the hotel room number. And secret number 3, this is the one that still gives me chills, I knew how much money he'd stolen from us, from me, and I knew exactly where he'd hidden it. You see, 6 months before that anniversary dinner, I found something. It was March 15th, a Tuesday, completely ordinary in every way except for what I discovered when I was organizing our tax documents. I found a credit card statement for a card I didn't know existed. A card in both our names, but one I'd never seen, never used, never even knew had been opened. And as I sat there at our kitchen table, reading through the charges, my entire world shifted on its axis. Hotels in our own city, restaurants I'd never been to, jewelry I'd never received, charges for flowers sent to an address I didn't recognize. And here's what made my blood run cold. This wasn't happening on business trips. This wasn't in other cities. This was right here, right under my nose, in the city where we lived. That's when I made a decision that would define the next 6 months of my life. I didn't confront him. I didn't cry. I didn't throw the statement in his face and demand answers. No, I did something much, much smarter. I became a detective. And if you're wondering whether I'm going to tell you what I said at that dinner table, what words came out of my mouth that made the entire room go silent, yes, I'll get there. But first, you need to understand who I was, who he was, and how we got to that moment. Because this story, it doesn't start at that dinner party. It starts 16 years earlier, when I made the biggest mistake of my life. I said yes to Michael Reynolds.
Let me take you back, way back, to a corporate conference in Chicago in 2009. I was 32 years old, working as a senior auditor for a mid-sized firm. I was good at my job, really good. I could look at a spreadsheet and see patterns other people missed. I could find discrepancies in financial records that would make executives sweat. Numbers didn't lie to me. They told me stories. That's actually important to remember for later. Michael was 35. He worked for a tech company that was doing well. Not Silicon Valley well, but Midwest well, which meant stable, respectable, promising. We met at a networking mixer on the second night of the conference. He was charming in that way that ambitious men in their 30s often are. Confident without being arrogant, funny without trying too hard, successful enough to be interesting, but not so successful that he was intimidating. We talked for 3 hours that night, about work, about goals, about what we wanted from life. He told me he wanted to build something real, not just a career, but a life, a family, stability. All the things that sounded so appealing to a woman who'd spent her 20s climbing the corporate ladder and was starting to wonder what came next. We dated long distance for 8 months. He lived in Columbus, I lived in Indianapolis. Close enough to see each other most weekends, far enough that the relationship stayed exciting, new, full of possibility. He'd drive down on Friday nights with flowers, we'd explore restaurants, go to museums, stay up late talking about everything and nothing. Looking back now, I can see the red flags. Small ones, tiny ones, the kind you dismiss because you want so badly for the story to be a good one. He'd sometimes take hours to respond to texts, then explain he'd been in meetings. He was weirdly protective of his phone, but I told myself that was just professional boundaries. Once, I saw a woman's name pop up on his screen, Ashley, and when I asked who she was, he said, "Just someone from work," in a tone that suggested I was being paranoid for even asking. I believed him, because I wanted to. Because at 32, when you meet someone who seems to check all the boxes, you start making excuses for the small stuff that doesn't quite add up. We got engaged after a year and a half, married 6 months after that. It was a beautiful wedding, 150 guests, a venue by a lake, everything I'd ever imagined. My parents loved him. My friends thought I'd won the lottery. "He's so put together," they'd say. "He's going to take care of you." That phrase haunts me now, take care of you, as if I needed taking care of, as if I wasn't a fully grown woman with her own career, her own money, her own life. But I digested it. I smiled. I played the role of the glowing bride marrying the perfect man. The first few years were good. I won't lie about that. We bought a house in the suburbs, 4 bedrooms, white picket fence, the whole American dream package. We both worked hard, we traveled when we could, we talked about having kids, though we kept putting it off. Once we're more settled, we'd say, once we've saved more money. But somewhere around year 5, things started to shift, subtly at first. He started working later, much later. "Big project," he'd say, trying to position myself for a promotion. I understood. I was doing the same thing at my firm. By year 7, we were ships passing in the night. He'd come home at 10, 11, sometimes midnight. I'd already be in bed or pretending to be. We stopped having dinner together, stopped going on dates, stopped really talking about anything deeper than logistics. Who was paying what bill, whose turn it was to deal with the lawn service, when we needed to see his parents.
The intimacy died slowly, like a plant you forget to water. You don't notice it wilting until one day you realize it's been dead for months and you just haven't removed it yet. By year 10, we had separate bedrooms. He said it was because of his snoring. I said it was fine, that I understood. But really, it was because we'd become strangers who shared a mortgage and a last name and not much else. My friends would ask me how we were doing, and I'd smile and say, "Marriage is work, you know, but we're good, we're solid." I don't know who I was trying to convince, them or myself. At my job, I was thriving. I'd made partner at my firm. I was managing major accounts, traveling for audits, making good money. But at home I was shrinking, becoming smaller, quieter, less. Michael's career was advancing too. He'd been promoted twice, was making 6 figures, had a corner office and a team of people under him. but he'd also become someone I barely recognized, colder, more distant, sometimes cruel in small ways, dismissive comments about my appearance, jokes about my age, suggestions that I was becoming boring. I told myself this was just what long-term marriage looked like, that passion fades, that comfort replaces excitement, that this was normal. I was 45 years old, and I'd convinced myself that feeling lonely in my own marriage was just normal. And then March 15th happened, and everything I'd been telling myself, every excuse, every rationalization, every lie I'd accepted, shattered like glass. The intimacy died slowly, like a plant you forget to water. You don't notice it wilting until one day you realize it's been dead for months and you just haven't removed it yet. By year 10, we had separate bedrooms. He said it was because of his snoring. I said it was fine, that I understood. But really, it was because we'd become strangers who shared a mortgage and a last name and not much else. My friends would ask me how we were doing, and I'd smile and say, "Marriage is work, but we're good, we're solid." I don't know who I was trying to convince, them or myself. At my job, I was thriving. I'd made partner at my firm. I was managing major accounts, traveling for audits, making good money. But at home I was shrinking, becoming smaller, quieter, less. Michael's career was advancing too. He'd been promoted twice, was making 6 figures, had a corner office and a team of people under him. But he'd also become someone I barely recognized, colder, more distant, sometimes cruel in small ways, dismissive comments about my appearance, jokes about my age, suggestions that I was becoming boring. I told myself this was just what long-term marriage looked like, that passion fades, that comfort replaces excitement, that this was normal. I was 45 years old, and I'd convinced myself that feeling lonely in my own marriage was just normal. And then March 15th happened, and everything I'd been telling myself, every excuse, every rationalization, every lie I'd accepted, shattered like glass.
That Tuesday morning started like any other. Michael had already left for work. He'd started leaving earlier and earlier, said he liked to beat the traffic. I was working from home that day, had a video call at 10, but otherwise a light schedule. I'd been procrastinating on organizing our tax documents for weeks, and our accountant had started sending increasingly pointed emails. So I made coffee, sat down at the kitchen table, and started pulling together files. That's when I found the envelope, tucked inside a folder labeled 2023 Business Expenses, which was strange because Michael usually kept his work stuff separate. Inside was a credit card statement, Bank of America, a card number I didn't recognize, but both our names were on it, Catherine and Michael Reynolds. My first thought was identity theft. Someone had opened a card in our names. I should call the bank, report it, handle it. But something made me actually read the statement instead of immediately panicking. The first charge, the Fairmont Hotel, downtown, $347, February 14th, Valentine's Day. We'd spent Valentine's Day at home. He'd said he was too tired to go out. We'd ordered takeout and watched TV. The second charge, Ocean Air Seafood Room, $286, February 18th. I'd never been to that restaurant. He'd said he was working late that night. Third charge, Tiffany & Co., $1,847, February 20th. I own exactly 0 items from Tiffany & Co. My hands started shaking, that feeling you get when your body knows something terrible before your brain fully processes it. That's what hit me. A physical wave of nausea and adrenaline and something that felt like ice water in my veins. I kept reading. The statement was 47 pages long, charges going back 3 years, hotels, always hotels in our city, restaurants, lingerie stores, a charge at a place called Baby Beginnings, a maternity boutique. I sat there for I don't know how long, could have been 10 minutes, could have been an hour. The coffee went cold. I missed my 10 o'clock call. I just sat there, reading and rereading, my brain trying to make sense of what I was seeing. And then something clicked. That part of my brain that had been trained for 20 years to audit, to investigate, to follow the money and find the truth, it activated.
I didn't cry. Not then. I went into my office, closed the door, and I started working. This was an audit now. The biggest, most important audit of my life. First step, I logged into our bank accounts. All of them. We had 3 checking accounts, his, mine, and a joint one for household expenses. 2 savings accounts, a money market account. I had access to everything. We'd always been transparent about finances, or so I thought. I started pulling statements, going back 3 years, matching them to the credit card charges. And that's when I saw it. Transfers. Small at first. $500 from our joint savings to his personal checking, then $1,000, then $2,000. Irregular enough that I'd never noticed. But when I added them all up, $127,000. Over 3 years, he'd transferred $127,000 from our joint accounts into his personal account. And from there, it disappeared, moved somewhere I couldn't see. I spent the next 6 hours digging. I found 2 more credit cards I didn't know about. I found a checking account at a different bank, one that showed regular deposits from his paycheck that I'd never known about. Money that should have been going into our joint account was being rerouted. By 8 p.m., when I heard his car in the driveway, I'd built a preliminary case, and I'd made a decision. I wasn't going to confront him. Not yet. That night at dinner, yes, he actually came home for dinner that night, one of the rare times. I was perfectly normal. Asked about his day, told him about mine, mentioned the missed call but said it was fine, I'd rescheduled. Smiled when he talked about some project at work. He had no idea that I knew, no idea what was coming. After he went to bed, in his room, of course, I stayed up until 3 a.m. and I hired a private investigator. Her name was Patricia Chen. I found her through a colleague who'd used her services during her own divorce. Patricia specialized in marital investigations, infidelity, asset searches, what she called financial betrayal cases. We met the next day at a coffee shop 40 minutes from my house. I showed her everything I'd found. She didn't seem shocked. "I see this more often than you'd think," she said, "and it's usually worse than the initial discovery." She was right. Over the next 6 months, Patricia became my secret weapon. She followed Michael, photographed him, documented his movements, and what she found? Her name was Ashley Morrison, 28 years old, marketing coordinator at Michael's company. Blonde, pretty in that fresh, young way that made me feel every one of my 45 years. They'd been involved for almost 4 years. 4 years! Patricia's photos showed them together at hotels, restaurants, walking hand in hand through parks. She'd tracked them to a condo I didn't know existed, a 2-bedroom place in a new development across town. Lease in Michael's name only. Furnished, decorated. A whole separate life. And in April, Patricia called me with news that made me vomit. Actually vomit. Ashley was pregnant, 4 months along. I remember hanging up the phone, walking calmly to the bathroom, and throwing up everything in my stomach. Then I washed my face, looked at myself in the mirror, and said out loud to my own reflection, "You're going to destroy him." The investigation expanded. I didn't just want to know about the affair. I wanted to know everything. I hired a forensic accountant, someone Patricia recommended, someone discreet. We went through everything. Every bank statement, every tax return, every financial record I could access. And we found more. Michael hadn't just been stealing from our marriage, he'd been stealing from his company. fake vendor accounts, phantom consulting fees, money being funneled into shell companies and then dispersed. Over 5 years, he'd embezzled approximately $1.2 million. The scheme was sophisticated enough that his company hadn't caught it, but sloppy enough that someone with my skills and 6 months of focused investigation could unravel it completely. I documented everything, every affair meeting, every stolen dollar, every lie. I built a case that would hold up in divorce court and potentially criminal court. And I waited. I played the perfect wife. I smiled at dinner when we occasionally ate together. I asked about his day. I pretended not to notice when he came home smelling like perfume that wasn't mine. I pretended not to see the scratches on his back or the hickey he tried to hide with his collar. For 6 months, I lived a double life. By day, Catherine Reynolds, wife and partner at an accounting firm. By night, Catherine Reynolds, detective building an airtight case against her husband. My friends started asking if I was okay. I'd lost weight. Stress will do that. Sarah, my best friend, cornered me one day at lunch. "You look exhausted," she said. "Is everything all right with Michael?" "We're fine," I lied. "Just busy with work." The whole time, Michael had no idea. He'd gotten so comfortable in his deception that he'd become sloppy, careless. He thought I was too stupid, too trusting, too beaten down to ever question him. That was his biggest mistake, because while he was planning his exit, and oh, he was planning it, I'd found the evidence of that too, I was building my revenge. And then came September, our 15th anniversary, and Michael did something I didn't expect. He said he wanted to have a big dinner party, celebrate. 15 years, he said. That's a milestone. Let's do it right. I said yes. Of course I said yes, because I knew something he didn't. I knew this wasn't a celebration. This was a performance. This was him setting a stage, and I was about to steal his show. Planning that dinner party was surreal. Michael was actually excited, which should have been my first clue that something was off. We hadn't celebrated an anniversary in years, usually just a card and a quick dinner if we remembered at all. But 15 years? Suddenly, he wanted the whole production. "Let's invite everyone," he said. "Our families, our closest friends. Make it special." I agreed to everything. Sure, let's rent the private room at Meridian Restaurant. Sure, let's get the premium wine package. Sure, let's make it a night to remember. Because, oh, it was going to be memorable, just not in the way he thought. I spent $800 on a new dress, emerald green, fitted, elegant. I got my hair done, nails, full makeup. I wanted to look powerful because I knew what was coming, even if no one else did. The guest list was 20 people. My parents, his brother and sister-in-law, my best friend Sarah and her husband, 3 couples we'd been friends with for years, a few of his colleagues, a few of mine. 2 days before the party, I found the email. Michael had left his laptop open, another sign of how comfortable he'd gotten, and I saw a draft in his trash folder. Subject line, divorce timeline and asset protection strategy. It was to his lawyer, a lawyer I didn't know he'd hired. The email laid out his plan. He was going to announce at the dinner party in front of everyone that he wanted a divorce, make it seem spontaneous, like a sudden realization, but really, it was calculated. He thought that if he did it publicly with witnesses, it would somehow protect him, make him seem like the reasonable one, the one who'd tried but couldn't make it work anymore. And the asset protection part? He'd already moved $847,000 into accounts I couldn't access, money from our joint savings, from his embezzlement, from everywhere. He'd been planning to claim in court that I was mentally unstable. There were notes about documenting her erratic behavior, and that he needed to protect his assets from my potential vindictiveness. Reading that email felt like being stabbed. Even though I knew about the affair, knew about the stealing, seeing it spelled out in such cold, calculated terms, it broke something in me, and then immediately forged it into steel. I forwarded the email to myself, added it to my evidence folder, now labeled nuclear option. The night of the party arrived, September 10th. I woke up that morning with a strange sense of calm. I'd been planning what I was going to do for 2 weeks. Patricia thought I was crazy. Handle it privately, she'd said. You have all the evidence. Take him to court, destroy him there. But I couldn't. I needed him to feel what I'd felt, the humiliation, the public exposure, the moment when everything you thought was private becomes spectacularly, irreversibly public. I got ready slowly. Every part of my appearance was armor. The dress, the heels, the jewelry, my own jewelry, bought with my own money, not gifts from him because there'd been no gifts in years. Michael was in a good mood, whistling while he got ready, excited. He thought tonight was his night, his big moment. He had no idea it was mine. We arrived at the restaurant at 6:30. Guests started filtering in, hugs, greetings, the usual social dance. My mother looked beautiful, but tired. She'd been dealing with some health issues. His parents were their usual selves, polite but distant with me, adoring with their son. Sarah caught my eye across the room and mouthed, "You okay?" I nodded. The dinner was lovely, I'll give him that. Good food, good wine, conversation flowing. Michael was charming, telling stories, making people laugh, playing the role of devoted husband so well I almost admired the performance. I barely ate. I drank water. I needed to be completely clear-headed for what came next. Around 9:30, after the main course, Michael stood up, clinked his glass with a fork. The room went quiet. "Everyone," he said, smiling that smile I used to love and now couldn't stand, "I want to say something." Here we go, I thought. 15 years with this beautiful woman, he gestured to me. It's been quite a journey. People smiled, nodding. They thought a sweet speech was coming. And I've been thinking a lot lately about the future, about what we want, about where we're going. I watched him. He was building to something. I could see it in his eyes. And I figure, he paused for effect, let's make it an even 16, shall we? I'll give her 1 more year. The room went silent for a beat. Then, uncomfortable laughter started. People thought it was a joke, a tasteless joke, but a joke. My mother's face went white. Sarah's eyes went wide with horror. His mother looked confused. But most people laughed because what else do you do when someone says something awkward at a dinner party? Michael was still standing, that smug smile on his face. He'd said it. He'd made his public declaration, planted the seed. In a year, when he filed for divorce, people would remember this moment and think, oh, he warned her, he tried. He started to sit down. That's when I stood up. The laughter died immediately. Every eye turned to me. "That's interesting, Michael," I said, my voice steady and clear, because I was thinking the exact same thing. He looked at me, surprised. This wasn't in his script. "Actually, I have something I'd like to share with everyone, since we're making public announcements tonight." I pulled out my phone. My hands weren't shaking. I was completely calm. "Michael, honey, do you mind if I connect to the restaurant screen?" I put together a little presentation for our anniversary. The color started draining from his face. He knew. Suddenly he knew something was wrong. "Catherine," he said, voice tight, "maybe we should—" "Oh no," I interrupted, smiling. "You wanted to make big announcements in front of everyone. Let's make it really memorable." I'd already arranged it with the restaurant manager earlier that week. Told her I was doing a sweet anniversary slideshow. She helped me connect my phone to their screen system. The title slide appeared on the large screen behind me. 15 years, a financial audit. Someone gasped. I think it was Sarah. "For those who don't know," I said, still standing, still perfectly calm, "I'm a forensic accountant. It's what I do for a living. I audit companies, find discrepancies, trace money, uncover fraud. I'm very good at it." The room was dead silent. Michael had gone pale. His hand was gripping his wine glass so hard I thought it might shatter. And about 6 months ago, I discovered something interesting, so I did what I do best. I investigated, I documented, I built a case. Click. Next slide. A credit card statement. This is a credit card I didn't know existed, in both our names, but only one of us was using it. Let me show you some highlights. Click. The Fairmont Hotel charge, Valentine's Day. We spent Valentine's Day at home that year, Michael. Remember? You said you were too tired to go out, but apparently you weren't too tired for the Fairmont. His brother made a sound, almost a laugh, but shocked. Click. Next slide. Restaurant charges, Tiffany & Co., a lingerie boutique. None of these purchases were for me, in case anyone's wondering. My mother's hand was over her mouth. Sarah was staring at the screen, then at Michael, then back at the screen. Click. Next slide. Bank transfer records. Over 3 years, $127,000 was transferred from our joint accounts into Michael's personal account. Small amounts at first, then larger, all without my knowledge. Michael stood up suddenly. "This is insane. You've been spying on me? This is—" "Sit down, Michael," I said calmly. "I'm not finished." Something in my voice made him sit. Or maybe it was the fact that 20 pairs of eyes were staring at him with varying degrees of shock and disgust. Click. Next slide. Photos. The room gasped. They were pictures Patricia had taken, Michael and Ashley together, holding hands, kissing, entering a hotel.
"Her name is Ashley Morrison," I said. "She's 28. She works at your company. This affair has been going on for 4 years. 4 years, Michael." His mother made a sound, a sob or a gasp, I couldn't tell. "But wait," I said, and I could hear the edge in my own voice now, the rage underneath the calm. Click. Next slide. A condo listing. This is a property Michael purchased 18 months ago, a 2-bedroom condo across town. He's been living a double life, literally. 2 homes, 2 relationships, 1 wife who had no idea. Sarah was crying now. My father looked like he wanted to kill Michael. His father was staring at his son like he'd never seen him before. But the truly fascinating part, the part that really showcases Michael's character, is this. Click. Next slide. Recent photos of Ashley, visibly pregnant. The room exploded, voices erupting. Michael's mother started crying. His brother stood up, shouting something at Michael. My mother was holding my father back from lunging across the table. I just stood there, waiting for the chaos to die down. "She's 6 months pregnant," I said, when the room quieted. And before anyone asks how I know all this, I hired a private investigator. Her name is Patricia Chen. She's excellent. I can give you her number if anyone else needs to investigate their spouse. That got a strangled laugh from someone. Michael was standing now, red-faced, hands shaking. "You had no right," he said. "You violated my privacy. I violated your privacy?" I laughed, actually laughed. "Michael, you've been living a double life for 4 years. You've stolen almost $1 million. You've been planning to divorce me and claim I'm mentally unstable so you could keep the money. Don't talk to me about rights. How did you—" He stopped, realizing what he was admitting. "The email to your lawyer?" I smiled. "You left your laptop open 2 days ago. Careless, Michael. You've gotten so comfortable in your lies that you've become sloppy." Click. Next slide. The email displayed for everyone to read. I let them read it, let them see his plan, the manipulation, the calculation, the cruelty. When I looked around the room, I saw everything I needed to see. His parents were horrified. His brother looked disgusted. My parents looked heartbroken but supportive. Our friends were in shock.
But here's my favorite part, I said, and this is why I wanted to do this tonight in front of all of you. Because Michael thought he could humiliate me. He thought he could make a public announcement about divorcing me, plant seeds for his narrative, make me look like the problem. I looked directly at him. So I wanted you to see who he really is, not the charming, successful man you think you know, but a liar, a thief, a cheater, someone who would steal from his wife, betray his vows, and destroy his marriage while blaming the victim. Click. Final slide. A simple sentence. I'm filing for divorce tomorrow. So yes, Michael, you're absolutely right. 1 more year? That's generous. How about 1 more day? I'm filing tomorrow morning, and just so everyone knows, I have documentation for everything you've seen tonight. Bank records, photos, emails, text messages, everything. I paused. Oh, and 1 more thing. The $1.2 million you embezzled from your company? I've documented that too. I'll be sending that information to your HR department and legal team on Monday. I thought about reporting it to the police immediately, but I wanted to give your company first crack at internal investigation. I'm thoughtful that way. The room was silent. Michael's face had gone from red to gray. You're lying, he said, but his voice had no conviction. I'm a forensic accountant, Michael. Lying about financial records is literally the thing I'm trained to catch. The fake vendor accounts, the phantom consulting fees, the shell companies. It took me about 3 weeks to unravel the whole scheme. You're good, but I'm better. I grabbed my purse. I'm leaving now. The dinner is paid for, with my credit card, by the way. Everyone please stay. Finish your meals, have dessert. It's all taken care of. I looked around the room one last time. I'm sorry you all had to see this, truly, but I needed witnesses. I needed you all to know that when Michael starts telling his version of events, and he will, you'll remember tonight. You'll remember what you saw. I walked toward the door. Sarah jumped up to follow me, but I shook my head. I'm okay. I'll call you tomorrow. At the doorway, I turned back. Happy anniversary, Michael, and I left.
But before I tell you what happened when I got home that night, before I tell you about Michael's reaction and what came next in this absolute chaos, I need to know something. I need to know you're still here with me, because this story gets even more intense. The legal battles, the revelations, the twists that nobody, including me, saw coming. So do me a favor right now. Drop a comment and just tell me, what's your location? Where are you watching this from? I'm genuinely curious. Are you watching this at 2 a.m. unable to sleep? Are you listening while you're working? Are you from the US, UK, Australia, somewhere else entirely? Just drop your city, your state, your country, wherever you're watching from. Let me see how far this story is traveling. Let me know I'm not just talking to myself here. And while you're down there in the comments, if this story is hitting home for you, if you're feeling seen or understood, or just completely shocked by everything you've heard so far, tell me, what part has resonated most with you? Because we're only at the halfway point. What comes next? The legal warfare, the criminal trial, the twist involving Michael's own mother that nobody could have predicted? That's when this story goes from shocking to absolutely unforgettable. So drop that comment. Let me know you're here. Let me know you're still with me. All right, let's continue. I sat in my car in the parking lot for I don't know how long. I wasn't crying, I wasn't shaking, I was just empty. Like I'd used up every ounce of energy I had for that performance, and now there was nothing left. My phone started buzzing. Sarah, my mother, his brother, weirdly. I didn't answer any of them. I just drove home, went inside our house, still our house for now, and sat in the dark living room. Around midnight, Michael came home. I heard his car, heard him come in. He stood in the doorway of the living room. I'd turned on one lamp. "Catherine," he said, just my name. He sounded broken. "Pack a bag," I said. "Go to your other home, the condo. You're not staying here tonight."
"We need to talk about this." "There's nothing to talk about. My lawyer will contact yours. You're served papers by end of business tomorrow." "You've ruined me," he said, and there was something in his voice, not regret, anger. "No," I said, standing up. "You ruined you. You made every single choice that led to this moment. You stole, you cheated, you lied. I just held up a mirror. Everyone's going to know. Everyone. Good. They should know. They should know who you really are." He left, grabbed some clothes from his room, threw them in a bag, and left. I locked the door behind him. And then, finally, I cried. I cried for hours, for the marriage I thought I had, for the years I'd wasted, for the version of myself who'd believed in him, trusted him, loved him. But I also cried from relief, because it was over. The pretending, the investigation, the double life, all of it, over. The next morning, I filed for divorce. My lawyer, I'd hired her 2 months earlier, had everything ready, served him by noon. By Monday, the story had spread. Not publicly, thank God, but within our circles. Everyone knew. I started getting calls, texts, emails, some supportive, some nosy, some judgmental. "You could have handled that privately," more than one person said. But I didn't regret it, not for a second. The company investigation started that week. Michael was suspended pending internal review. By the end of the month, he was terminated, and they'd filed a criminal complaint. Ashley, poor Ashley, and yes, I do feel for her, reached out to me. She wanted to talk. Against my lawyer's advice, I agreed to meet her. We met at a coffee shop. She was 7 months pregnant by then. She cried, told me she didn't know he was married at first, that he'd said he was divorced. By the time she found out the truth, she was already in love with him, and then pregnant. "He told me he'd marry me," she said, "after the divorce, that we'd be a family." "He's not going to marry you," I told her, not unkindly. "He's not capable of that kind of commitment. You were never special to him. You were convenient." She cried harder. I wanted to comfort her, but I couldn't. She'd been part of destroying my marriage, even if she'd been lied to as well. "What are you going to do?" I asked. "Have the baby, raise her myself. My parents are helping. Michael doesn't want anything to do with her. He tried to pay me to not have her." That didn't surprise me. Michael had never wanted children. I thought it was something we agreed on, but now I wondered if he just didn't want children with me. "I'm sorry," she said, "for everything. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I am." "I believe you," I said, and I did. She was a victim too, just a different kind. We parted ways. I never spoke to her again. But a few months later, Sarah told me Ashley had a baby girl, that she'd moved back to her hometown in Michigan to be near her family, that she'd quit her job and was starting over. Good for her, I thought. We were both starting over. The divorce proceedings were brutal. Michael thought everything, claimed I'd manipulated the evidence, that I'd violated his privacy illegally, that I was vindictive and unstable, exactly the narrative he'd planned, just now he was using it defensively instead of offensively. But I had the evidence, all of it, documented, dated, verified. His lawyer tried everything, but you can't argue with bank records. You can't dispute photographs. You can't explain away emails in your own words. The criminal case moved forward too. The company had done their own audit, hired an outside firm, ironically one I'd worked with before, and confirmed everything I'd found. Michael was charged with embezzlement, wire fraud, and a few other charges I didn't fully understand. My life became consumed by legal proceedings, depositions, court dates, meetings with lawyers. It was exhausting and expensive, even though I was going to recoup the costs from the settlement. My friends rallied around me. Sarah basically moved in for a few weeks, making sure I ate, making sure I slept. My parents were supportive but worried. "Are you sure you want to put yourself through this?" my mother asked. "You could settle quietly, move on." "No," I said. "He doesn't get to do this and walk away unscathed. Actions have consequences." 6 months into the divorce, something unexpected happened. Michael's lawyer called my lawyer with a settlement offer. He'd agree to everything, give me the house, the real savings accounts he hadn't hidden, his pension, everything, if I would agree not to testify in the criminal trial. My lawyer laid it out. If you take this deal, you get everything you're entitled to and then some. If you push forward, testify in the criminal case, there's a chance it drags things out. He could appeal, could try to tie up assets. This is a clean break. I thought about it for exactly 30 seconds. No deal. I'm testifying. Because it wasn't about the money anymore. It was about the principle. He needed to be held accountable, not just in civil court, but in criminal court. He needed to face consequences for stealing from his company, for defrauding his employer, for breaking actual laws. The trial was grueling. I testified for 7 hours over 2 days. His defense attorney tried to paint me as a scorned wife seeking revenge. Isn't it true, Mrs. Reynolds, that you were angry about the affair? That this is all retaliation? I was angry about the affair, I said calmly, but the embezzlement, that has nothing to do with me. That's between Michael and the company he stole from. I just happened to be the one who found it. The jury deliberated for 3 days. Michael was found guilty on 4 of 6 counts. The sentencing came 2 weeks later. 5 years probation, full restitution to the company, $1.2 million plus interest and penalties, and a permanent mark on his record. No jail time, which disappointed me, but the judge made it clear. Mr. Reynolds, you betrayed everyone who trusted you, your wife, your employer, your family. The only reason you're not going to prison is because you're a first-time offender and the company is willing to accept restitution. But make no mistake, you will spend the rest of your life paying for these choices. The divorce was finalized 1 month after that anniversary dinner. It was over. Legally, completely, finally over. I was 47 years old, divorced, starting over, and completely, utterly exhausted.
The first year after the divorce was finalized was the hardest year of my life. Harder than the investigation, harder than the trial, harder than the dinner party. Because suddenly, there was nothing to focus on except myself. For 18 months, I'd been running on adrenaline and rage and purpose. I had a mission: expose Michael, get divorced, make sure he faced consequences. And I'd accomplished all of that. But then what? I moved through my days like a ghost. I went to work, I came home to an empty house, a house that had never felt like home even when Michael lived there, and certainly didn't now. I saw my friends, but I could tell they were worried about me. "You won," Sarah said one night over wine. "You got everything you wanted. Why do you look so miserable?" "Because I spent 20 years of my life on someone who didn't deserve 20 minutes of my time," I said. "And I don't know who I am without that, without being a wife, without having that structure, even if it was broken." She didn't have an answer for that. Neither did I. I tried dating. God, that was a disaster. I went on exactly 3 dates in 6 months, and they were all terrible. The first guy spent the entire dinner talking about his ex-wife. The second guy was clearly looking for a sugar mama. He actually asked about my divorce settlement. The third guy seemed nice until he said, "You're very impressive for your age." For my age. I was 47, not 87. I gave up on dating, focused on work. But even work felt hollow. I was good at it, great at it. But was this all there was? Auditing companies, finding fraud, writing reports for the rest of my life? Around month 10 of being divorced, I had what I can only describe as a breakdown. Not a dramatic one. I didn't end up in a hospital or anything, but I sat in my car outside my office building one day and realized I couldn't make myself go inside. Couldn't do one more audit, couldn't pretend I cared about whether some company's accounts receivable matched their general ledger. I called in sick, went home, and for the first time in my entire adult life, I asked myself, what do I actually want?
Not what I should want, not what was practical, but what did I, Catherine Reynolds, age 47, divorced, childless, financially secure, what did I want? I didn't know. I'd spent so long being what other people needed, the good employee, the devoted wife, the daughter who didn't cause problems, that I had no idea who I was underneath all those roles.
So I started therapy. Real therapy. Not just the couples counseling Michael and I had tried once and abandoned. I found a therapist named Dr. Monica Shaw who specialized in life transitions and women's issues. Our first session, she asked me to tell her about myself without mentioning my job or my ex-husband. I sat there for a full minute, unable to speak. "That's okay," she said gently. "That's actually very telling. We'll work on that." And we did. Twice a week for 6 months, then once a week for another 6 months. We unpacked everything. My childhood, parents who meant well but taught me that being good meant being compliant, my marriage, how I'd ignored red flags because I was afraid of being alone, the investigation and divorce, how empowering it had been, but also how it had let me avoid dealing with my own issues. "You turned your pain into a project," Dr. Shaw said, "which isn't bad. It gave you agency when you felt powerless. But now the project's over. You actually have to feel the feelings." So I felt them. I grieved. Not from Michael, I was over him, truly, but for the life I'd thought I was building, for the version of myself who believed in fairy tales and happy endings. I also got angry, really angry, not at Michael specifically, but at the systems that had taught me to shrink myself, to be accommodating, to ignore my own needs, to stay in situations that were slowly killing me because leaving seemed scarier than staying. Dr. Shaw introduced me to a women's support group, 8 women, all in their 40s and 50s, all divorced or divorcing. We met every week in someone's living room and just talked about our marriages, our divorces, our fears, our hopes. Hearing their stories was revelatory. I wasn't alone. I wasn't uniquely stupid for missing the signs. I wasn't the only one who'd spent years making myself smaller to accommodate a partner who didn't appreciate it.
One woman, Patricia, not the investigator, different Patricia, said something that stuck with me. "I spent 25 years trying to be the perfect wife, and you know what I learned? Perfect wives don't get treated better. They just get taken for granted more efficiently." We all laughed. Then we cried. Then we laughed again. Around the 1-year mark of being officially divorced, something shifted. I woke up one morning and didn't immediately think about Michael. Didn't check to see if he'd violated the restraining order. He hadn't. He'd disappeared from my life completely. Didn't rehash conversations in my head. I just woke up. I made coffee, sat on my back deck, watched birds, and felt okay. Not happy, not yet, but okay. At peace, maybe. I started doing things I'd always wanted to do, but never had. Took a pottery class. I was terrible at it, but loved it anyway. Started hiking, joined a book club, traveled alone for the first time. A week in Iceland, just me and a rental car and vast, empty landscapes. On that trip, standing in front of a massive waterfall, completely alone, I had this moment. I realized I wasn't lonely. I was alone, yes, but I wasn't lonely. There's a difference. Lonely is wanting someone else to complete you. Alone is being complete on your own. I came back from that trip different, lighter. I made a decision. I was going to build a life I actually wanted, not a life that looked good from the outside. I quit my job. After 23 years in corporate accounting, I quit. My colleagues thought I was crazy. "You're a partner," they said. "You're at the peak of your career." "Exactly," I said, "and I hate it, so why would I keep doing it?" I didn't have a plan, no job lined up, no clear path forward, just a belief that there had to be something better. For 3 months, I did nothing, literally nothing productive. I read books, I took long walks, I reconnected with old friends I'd lost touch with. I learned to cook, actually cook, not just throw together the quick meals I'd been making for years. And slowly, an idea started forming. The idea came from an unexpected place. I was having coffee with Patricia, the private investigator who'd helped me with Michael's case. We'd stayed in touch, had become friends. She mentioned she was working on a case for a woman trying to hide assets before her husband figured out she was planning to leave. "She's been documenting his abuse for 2 years," Patricia said. "Financial abuse, emotional abuse, but she has no money of her own. He controls everything. She's terrified to leave because she doesn't know how she'll survive." Something clicked. "How many cases like that do you get?" I asked. "Probably 60% of my divorces involve some kind of financial abuse," she said. "Usually women who don't have access to joint accounts, don't know what assets exist, don't have money for lawyers. They're trapped." I went home and couldn't stop thinking about it. I had skills. I had money from the divorce settlement. I had experience navigating exactly this kind of situation. What if I could help? I called Patricia the next day. "What if we started something together, a service for women leaving marriages? I do the financial investigation for free, find hidden assets, document financial abuse, build cases. You do the field investigation. We connect them with pro bono lawyers or low-cost legal help." She was quiet for a moment. Then, "That's brilliant, but how would you fund it?" I'd been thinking about that. "I got $400,000 in the settlement, plus the house. I could sell the house. I don't want it anyway, too many bad memories. That would give me another $300,000 after paying off the mortgage. Call it $700,000 total. I could live on half, use half to fund this for at least 5 years. You'd give up that much money? I don't need it. I need purpose. This gives me purpose." We spent the next 3 months planning. We called it Fresh Start Financial Services. Boring name, I know, but clear about what we did. We incorporated as a nonprofit, filed for 501c3 status, set up systems, protocols, privacy protections. I sold the house, moved into a small apartment I actually loved, downtown, walkable, full of light. Used the money to fund the organization. We officially launched on the 2-year anniversary of my divorce being finalized. Our first client was a woman named Maria, 52, married for 28 years to a man who'd isolated her from her family, controlled every dollar, told her she was too stupid to work. I sat with Maria in my little office and went through her situation. She'd been collecting documents in secret for a year, bank statements she'd found, credit card bills, anything she could get her hands on, but she didn't know what she was looking at. I did. Within 2 weeks, I'd traced $600,000 her husband had hidden in various accounts. I'd documented his financial abuse. I'd built a case that showed a pattern of control and manipulation. Maria cried when I showed her. "I thought I was crazy," she said. "He told me we were broke, that we couldn't afford anything. And there's $600,000? There's $600,000, I confirmed, and you're entitled to half of it, minimum. We connected her with a lawyer who worked on a sliding scale. Patricia found evidence of her husband's affair because, of course, there was an affair. Within 6 months, Maria was divorced, had her share of the assets, and had enrolled in community college to finish the degree she'd abandoned when she got married. She sent me a card a year later. It just said, "You gave me my life back. Thank you." That card is framed in my office. Word spread. We helped 3 women that first year, then 10 the second year, then 25. Some cases were straightforward: find the hidden accounts, document the abuse, facilitate the divorce. Others were complex, involving businesses, offshore accounts, sophisticated financial manipulation. I loved it. Every single case, even the hard ones, especially the hard ones, because I knew exactly what these women were feeling. The
the betrayal, the fear, the uncertainty, and I knew that having someone on their side, someone who believed them and had the skills to help, made all the difference. We grew, brought on volunteer accountants and lawyers, partnered with domestic violence organizations, applied for grants. By year 3, we'd helped over 100 women.
The work was healing me in ways therapy couldn't. Every woman I helped was, in some way, helping myself, giving the version of me from 5 years ago the support I'd wished I'd had. My personal life started to improve too, not because I was looking for it, but because I was finally living authentically. I made new friends through the nonprofit, joined a hiking group, started dating again, but casually, with no expectations. I met someone. His name is Robert. He's 54, a high school teacher, divorced 8 years ago. No drama, no hidden secrets, just a genuinely kind man who loves his students and his 2 grown daughters and hiking and terrible science fiction novels. Our first date, I told him everything, the whole story. Michael, the investigation, the dinner party, all of it. I figured if it scared him off, better to know immediately. He listened to the entire thing. Then he said, "That must have been incredibly painful, but also, you're kind of a badass." I laughed. Actually laughed. Not really, I was just tired of being treated like I didn't matter. "That's what makes you a badass," he said. "We've been together for 18 months now. It's different from my marriage in every way. We maintain separate homes. I'm not ready to live with someone again, maybe ever. We split everything 50-50. We communicate. We respect each other's independence. Is it perfect? No, but it's real. It's honest. It's built on mutual respect instead of manipulation, and that makes all the difference." My relationship with my family healed too. My parents, who'd been heartbroken by the divorce, now tell people proudly about my nonprofit. My mother volunteers sometimes, helping with administrative work. I reconciled with some of Michael's family, weirdly. His brother reached out about a year after the divorce. "I'm sorry," he said. "I should have seen what he was doing, should have said something." "You couldn't have known," I told him. "He fooled everyone." We get coffee occasionally now. He tells me about his kids. I tell him about the nonprofit. We don't talk about Michael. Speaking of Michael, I know you're wondering. I've seen him exactly once in the 5 years since the divorce. Ran into him at a grocery store. He'd aged badly, looked tired, defeated. He saw me, started to say something, then just turned and walked away. I felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no sadness, nothing. He was just a stranger I used to know. I heard through the grapevine that he works for a small company now, making a fraction of what he used to make, that he's still paying restitution to his old company, that Ashley won't let him see his daughter, she's 5 now, because he never paid child support and disappeared from their lives. I feel bad for the daughter. She didn't ask for any of this. But Michael, I don't think about him at all anymore. But here's the thing nobody expected, not even me. 2.5 years after my divorce was finalized, I got a call from a lawyer I didn't know. He said he represented Michael's mother, Patricia Reynolds. She wanted to meet with me. I hadn't spoken to Patricia since the divorce. We'd been close once. She'd been kind to me, had welcomed me into the family. But after everything came out, she'd been devastated. Her son had destroyed his marriage, stolen from his company, fathered a child he abandoned. I'd assumed she hated me for exposing it all. "She's dying," the lawyer said. "Cancer. She has maybe a month. She asked specifically to see you." I didn't want to go. I'd moved on. Why open old wounds? But something made me say yes. We met at her home. She looked tiny in her hospital bed, hooked up to oxygen, clearly in pain. But her eyes were still sharp. "Catherine," she said. Her voice was weak but clear. "Thank you for coming." "Of course," I said, sitting in the chair next to her bed. "I need to tell you something. I need to apologize." "You don't owe me an apology. You didn't do anything." "I raised him," she said. "Michael. I raised him to think he was special, better than other people.
I spoiled him, made excuses for him, and I watched him become someone I didn't recognize, someone cruel. She started crying. I handed her a tissue. When you exposed what he'd done at that dinner, I was horrified. Not at you, at him. At myself for not seeing it, for making excuses when I did see signs. I watched him treat you with less and less respect over the years, and I said nothing. I told myself it wasn't my business.
"Let me finish," she said. "I'm dying. I need to say this." She took a shaky breath. "You were more of a daughter to me than he was ever a son. You were kind, thoughtful. You remembered my birthday, called just to chat, cared about my life, and I let my own child destroy you without saying a word. You couldn't have stopped him. Maybe not, but I could have stood by you publicly, could have told him he was wrong, could have cut him off financially. We were still helping him. Did you know that? Even after everything came out, his father wanted to help him with legal fees. I said no, but I should have been more forceful." She reached for my hand. Hers was cold, frail. "I changed my will," she said. "Everything I have, the house, the savings, the investments, it's going to you. Not Michael, you." I stared at her. "I can't accept that. Your son." My son made his choices, and he doesn't deserve a dime of what his father and I built. But you deserve better than what you got, better than what my family gave you. "Patricia, that's too much. Give it to charity, or—" "I'm giving it to charity," she said. Your nonprofit. I've seen what you're doing, Catherine, helping women like yourself. Women my son and men like him have destroyed. That's where my money should go." I was crying now. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll keep doing what you're doing. Say you'll help women who need it. Say you won't waste your second chance at life." "I won't," I promised. "I'm not." She died 3 weeks later. At her funeral, Michael tried to contest the will. Of course he did, but it was airtight. Patricia had made sure of that. The estate was worth $1.8 million. Patricia and her husband had lived modestly but saved religiously, and she left it all to me. Michael was furious. He tried to sue, claimed undue influence, that I'd manipulated his dying mother, but there was evidence. Letters Patricia had written, video testimony she'd recorded with her lawyer, a clear timeline showing she'd made this decision months before contacting me. The suit went nowhere. I put every penny into the nonprofit, expanded our services, hired full-time staff, opened a second office in another city, started a program providing emergency grants to women fleeing abuse, money for security deposits, first month's rent, whatever they needed to get out safely. In the 5 years since my divorce, we've helped over 400 women. Some of their stories make mine look mild. Physical abuse, stalking, financial devastation that left them literally homeless. But we've been able to help, to give them resources, support, a path forward. And honestly, every single one of them has helped me heal, because helping them helped me understand that what happened to me wasn't unique or personal. It was a pattern, a system, a culture that taught women to accept less, to minimize their own needs, to stay silent in the face of betrayal. Breaking that silence, both my own and helping others break theirs, that's been the most meaningful thing I've ever done. So here we are. It's been 5 years since that anniversary dinner. I'm 49 years old now, and I'm gonna tell you something that might sound strange. I'm grateful. Not for what Michael did, not for the betrayal or the pain or the humiliation, but for what it forced me to become. Because that version of me, the one who sat at that dinner table and accepted her husband's cruel joke in silence, she's gone. She died that night. And in her place is someone stronger, someone who knows her worth,
someone who will never, ever accept being treated as less than again. I wake up every morning in my small apartment that I love. I make coffee. I look at the photos on my wall. Me in Iceland, me with the women from my support group, me and Robert on a high-class month. I look at the framed card from Maria, the first woman we helped, and I feel content. Not deliriously happy every single day, life doesn't work that way, but content, at peace, living a life that's authentically mine. The nonprofit is thriving. We just hired our 10th full-time employee. We're launching a program to help women start businesses after divorce, small grants and business training to help them build financial independence. I'm writing a book about financial abuse and how to recognize it. Robert and I are talking about taking a trip to New Zealand next year. My life is full, rich, meaningful, everything my marriage never was. And Michael, I genuinely don't think about him anymore. He's a chapter in my history, but he's not my story. I'm my story. But I want to talk to you. Yes, you, whoever's watching this, because you've stuck with me for over an hour now, and that means something. It means this story resonated with you somehow. Maybe you're in a marriage that doesn't feel right. Maybe you're ignoring red flags because you're afraid of what facing them would mean. Maybe you're making excuses for someone who doesn't deserve them. Or maybe you're on the other side of it, already divorced, already rebuilding, wondering if it gets better. I want you to know it gets better. Not immediately, not easily, but it does. Here's what I learned, and I want you to really hear this. Your intuition is not paranoia. If something feels wrong, it probably is. You're not crazy. You're not overreacting. Trust yourself. Being alone is not the same as being lonely. I was lonelier in my marriage than I've ever been single. Don't stay in situations that diminish you just because you're afraid of being alone. You are not too old to start over. I was 46 when my marriage ended. I'm 49 now and living the best life I've ever lived. It's never too late. Financial independence is freedom. Whether you're married or single, know where your money is. Know what you have. Know what you're entitled to. Don't let anyone control you through finances. Asking for help is not weakness. I had a private investigator, a lawyer, a therapist, a support group. I couldn't have done this alone. You don't have to either. And finally, you deserve better than the minimum. You deserve respect, honesty, partnership. If you're not getting those things, you're allowed to leave. You don't need permission. You don't need a good enough reason. Your unhappiness is reason enough. Now, I want you to do something for me. If you've watched this far, drop a comment and tell me one thing. Have you ever been underestimated by someone who thought they had all the power over you? And what did you do about it? I'm reading every single comment, I promise, because your stories matter, your experiences matter, and sometimes just saying it out loud, even to strangers on the internet, is the first step toward reclaiming your power. And if you know someone who needs to hear this story, a friend, a sister, a coworker, your own mother, send this to them. Not because I need the views, but because they might need the reminder that they're not alone, that other people have walked through fire and come out stronger. If this resonated with you, hit that like button. Subscribe if you want to hear more real stories about navigating the messy parts of life. And most importantly, trust yourself. That voice inside you that whispers something's wrong, that voice is usually right. Listen to it. I'll leave you with this. A year after my divorce, I was hiking alone in Iceland. I stopped at this massive waterfall, just me and this incredible force of nature. And I thought about how water doesn't apologize for its power. It doesn't make itself smaller to make anyone comfortable. It just is. And I decided right then I was going to be like water, powerful in my own right, unapologetic, flowing around obstacles, but never stopped by them. You can be like water too.
Next time, and yes, there's going to be a next time, I'm going to tell you about something that happened last year that shocked even me. Michael tried to contact me. After 3 years of silence, he reached out. And what I did? Well, even my therapist was surprised. Click the video that just appeared on your screen to hear that story. But until then, remember this. The quietest person in the room isn't always the weakest. Sometimes they're just waiting for the right moment to speak. And when they do, the whole world listens. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. And thank you for giving me over an hour of your time. I hope it was worth it. Now go be powerful. You deserve it.